Welcome, viewers. Welcome to Fit Live TV. Joining us today are Tamara Jewett, winner of the PTO Lululemon Professional Triathlon Series race just a mere 2 weeks ago, and of course, Barrie Shepley. Welcome, folks. How are you guys today?
Terrific. Thanks for having us on.
Fantastic.
Really good.
Excellent. Very excited to have both of you on. And Barrie, I know you won't be disrespected in the least, but my God, the headliner having Tamara Jewett online is fantastic. I'll tell you a little secret. Another professional triathlete said a couple days ago that you are going to be a household name very soon. So that's quite the compliment. And I wouldn't disagree. I think your name is popping up in a lot of circles, Tamara. So you should be very excited about that. Um, Tamara Jewett, you have been an accomplished national, international cross country and track athlete, and of course, those that do know you, you had a very distinguished and high performance U Sport career at U of T, doing 5 years spread out amongst your undergrad as well as finishing law school. Must have been exciting for you. You enjoyed your time there?
Yeah, I really enjoyed being part of that team, and it certainly had its ups and downs with my personal career, but it was a really supportive community and exciting that I got to stick around long enough for us to win the track and field overall title, which meant a lot. It was very cool.
Fantastic. You're also named to the Tri Ontario Long Course Development Athlete list. Um, you were a recent winner of the, as mentioned earlier, the 2020 PTO Lululemon professional race 2 weeks ago. And of course, winner of the 2018 Ironman 70.3 in Muskoka, third at the South American 70.3, and fourth at the Augusta in 2019, and winner of many Ontario and a few other North American triathlons of the standard distance and various distance throughout North America. So congratulations on your successful career and very young career so far. Of course, on our screen just below is Barrie Shepley. Barrie, most people know him in the sport, been around a very, very long time, one of the great founding experts in the sport. Former national team coach for Canada, Olympic coach in 2000 in Sydney, where the sport debuted. Has coached athletes to numerous national titles, international games medalists, of course, Pan Am and world champs, Triathlon Canada Hall of Famer, the head coach of C3 Triathlon in Caledon, owner of Personal Best comprehensive fitness business and consultant program, and as well a certified level 4 triathlon coach. Welcome, Barrie. Glad to have you back.
Well, fun to be back. It's was a very long summer since the last time we were on together.
Yes, yes. Now, even though Tamara is the headliner, we're going to start off with just a couple things because I think they're going to give us some context to the very odd spring, summer from a preparation point of view for athletes, but also for yourself, Barrie, as a coach and within being a coach and running C3, how you can get your athletes moving forward. I'd like to start off just a little bit, Barrie, if you could describe the origin of creating this, what I would consider, from a layman's observation, a very successful, uh, socially distanced racing summer that was extremely unique. Can you give some background on how that all came about?
Well, it was probably the oddest year of my 35 years of coaching. When I went to bed on New Year's Eve, I thought I was going to be at the Olympic Games in Tokyo in July and Edmonton at the World Triathlon Championships in August, and then eventually in Kona next weekend. And the reality was that did not turn out, as we all know, with COVID. So, middle of probably about the 14th, 15th of March, I started getting calls from parents. I was down in Tucson, middle of training camps, and starting to panic. When do I bring our kids home? All of that kind of stuff. So that really started what was an odd next 5 or 6 weeks. Came home, had to do 2 weeks in quarantine if you're traveling back from the U.S. So I had a lot of time to kind of reflect as one race after the other was being canceled. And I could see immediately just a change in the energy of people as they were realizing that race isn't going to happen. Why am I going to be doing this interval workout? Why does that strength training session so important if I'm not even going to be training or racing later on in June or July? So I sat down with the board at C3, said, look, I've got some ideas. Would you be open to considering it? And so we started to look around. What if, it was really the question, what if we hosted our own event or two? That was really what it was about. And totally selfishly, it was just so that our C3 club members and our elite young athletes had a place and a target down the road. Maybe it was 2 events or 3 events. And the further I got involved into looking at the possibility of what that would look like, more people were calling saying, hey, I'm hearing that you might be doing something. Could we do this as 50-year-olds, as 60-year-olds, as 70-year-olds? So that started about 3 weeks of investigation. And by the time we finished it, I think we had 32 triathlons over the summer. We had 3 elite races with prize money. It culminated with Tamara and Jackson Landry winning the Lululemon Championship 2 weeks ago. In fact, it culminated last week with Tamara coming back and winning our old school half Ironman. And what I thought was going to be my slowest, most laid back summer was the most races I've ever announced in the entire history of 35 years. Some of my most enjoyable but fatiguing days that I've ever put on, and stressful. Suddenly numbers went from you could have 25 people to you could go to 100 to now you're back to 25. So all of those added wrinkles, but the volunteers were spectacular. The help from Triathlon Canada and Triathlon Ontario when we needed their support, the sponsors, magnificent. But the highlight really was watching athletes who thought they would not get to race. And technically, I saw everybody's skills get much better. We had a spectacular subdivision that was completely closed, no houses, and we ran 8 crit races in there. That was an opportunity to see people's bike handling skills get stronger and stronger. And we really saw that, still a lot of triathletes, even very good triathletes, still need to learn how to ride their bikes a little bit better. So the upside was I did not have a day off for about the last 120 days, but the joy of seeing a whole bunch of people cross the line, and people were picking every Wednesday morning, every Friday morning, every Sunday morning, these old school races were happening. And people were taking Wednesday morning off to race and then go off to a cafe to have lunch together. So it was great to see the feedback, and the quality of racing was really, really much higher than I had anticipated.
Yes, and in fact, Tamara, if I recall, about 4 weeks before the PTO Lululemon race, I think that was certainly the first race that I recognized that you were going to join and do with Jackson Taylor and Cody, and of course it was a handicapped race, and you crushed it. Give us your perspective, given what Barrie described, going from March 14th to culminating in your season is still ongoing. But give us a little snapshot of how you felt, what you went through, and then your decisions to jump into a form of racing.
Yeah, well, in early March, had just gotten back from a really big training camp in Florida with an American pro group there. And I think I got back the last week that you didn't have to quarantine if you got back. So everything at the airport was still just about, have you been to China? And then groups that I saw coming back a week later were all quarantining, and things changed really quickly. So I came back expecting I'd be gearing up for Oceanside 70.3 as my first race. And Suzanne, my coach, and I were really excited because I had a spot already for the 70.3 Ironman World Championship that was supposed to happen in November. So we were going to enter a lot of very competitive races to get really good race experience. And we felt like we had a lot of flexibility to organize our season however we wanted to. And yeah, there's quite a cascade of thinking, okay, I might not be racing till August, I might not be racing till October, and then going through a period where I thought I wouldn't be racing at all this year, which was particularly hard last season. I had a very short season because in July I broke my collarbone, and so I came back and raced a bit in the fall. But yeah, there was there was a lot of like changing ideas of what would happen, some pretty dark days where I really did sort of feel like I didn't know what would become of a lot of hard work that I'd put in or what I should focus on. And we did just have to keep my training plan going just in case there were races. And um, it really kind of all switched tone as soon as I did that race, the chase format race with some of those guys that was organized at the end of July. And then starting to do some of the C3 races, and then all of those races organized by C3 culminating in things like the Lululemon Pro Championship, just becoming way more competitive than I expected them to be, and way more exciting. And just everything that Barrie was saying about giving athletes something to focus on, and an opportunity to show what we've all been working on and to keep improving our competition skills. Really did mean a lot and really changed the whole tone of the summer and made it very exciting. A lot of adapting to different things and different formats. But I'm particularly realizing this week as I kind of come out of it and I'm trying to plan what comes next, and that's all uncertain again, just how much fun it made, like end of July, August, and September for me. And it's turned what could have been a very uneventful, frustrating slog into something that felt like a worthwhile, exciting and meaningful summer. So it's been really cool that the community's rallied to make that happen, and that Barrie and C3 did so much work, and Jackson Laundry and Taylor Reed with the championship.
Yes, good for you. Barrie, you had mentioned that you got a lot of support, obviously, from C3, both through the board of directors, leadership and support, sponsors, and your own leadership adding to that support. What kind of support did you get from Trican and Tri-Ontario leading up to the PTO Lululemon Championship race? Because certainly across the country, most national and provincial sport organizing bodies have been stressed with being able to sanction or allow events to occur. I'm just curious as to how you were able to bridge that gap and get some support leading into the PTO race.
Well, to be fair, I think still as we speak, it's an ever-changing landscape that changes every 2 or 3 weeks. In fact, before the half Ironman race, we were allowed 100 people 2 days before. We're down to 25 people and had to change it into 4 squads of 23 people racing each wave instead of 100 at once. So things have changed all summer. I've been respectful of that. Triathlon Ontario and Triathlon Canada, I think, have continued to do the best that they can with, insurance issues, concerns about liability, concerns about different parts of the province and the country with different rankings. Certain parts of Canada have almost no COVID. Other areas have had outbreaks. So they've had to keep their eye on the ball on that. And I've been appreciative of that it hasn't been easy just to kind of give us whatever we needed. But when I kind of went to Triathlon Canada, they said, look, Triathlon Ontario is much more understanding of what's going on in your region. If they feel comfortable that they can sanction the event, then we think it's a great idea. We love racing. We just, need to make sure it's safe. So Triathlon Canada gave us the support once Triathlon Ontario sanctioned the event. Phil Dale and Mike Mahoney and their team came up and looked at the event and gave some feedback on how to, keep it safe. Our biggest challenge, amazingly, was keeping under the 100-person number because, Tamara had 116 fans that wanted to come and watch her race, and Jackson had his 24, and everybody wanted to see Brent McMahon. So I've never had a race where I've had to turn away 250 volunteers. But that's the reality. We had to do it on a very small number of volunteers. We had to make sure that people couldn't come. So the race that they're going to be able to watch later on tonight will be a chance to actually see what went on instead of being there. And, I felt guilty and sad that people had all of this talent, 25, 50, 100 kilometers from their homes, and they wanted to come and watch. And we were basically saying, look, please do us a favor. Don't put us in jeopardy with too many people all on the property at once. So the biggest challenge we ran into after Triathlon Ontario sanctioned it was just literally maintaining that under 100 person number. And Craig Taylor was spectacular from Guelph. He managed all the volunteers and all of the hand sanitizer and made sure everybody had masks and reminded me every 15 minutes, that we have to keep people 2 meters apart. We only had two athletes on a entire 10-foot long, 2.5, whatever, 12-foot long bike rack so that they were socially distanced. And so all kinds of things that can be done, but just take extra time. And the elite athletes were fantastic. There were a few who were really bummed. I talked to Joanna Brown and to a few others, Paula Finley, who couldn't make it because they were out of the country, couldn't get back in time. So, Canadians understood that it's an odd period of time, but Brent McMahon was really, and Emily Kretz, I think, were the two kind of, known commodities. And when they said, yes, we're coming, that added a credibility to everybody else. And, people know Tamara's name, but 12 months from now, when she says, I'm coming to a race, that'll add the credibility too. At this point, it was like, yeah, we kind of heard about this woman. Not quite sure if she's that strong. Maybe at Olympic distance, could she go that fast? And she was my pre-pick before the day when CBC was asking, who should we be looking at for?
Yes.
Yeah, I said, look, you got to keep a camera. This is the Lori Bowden of 25 years ago that you don't see early on in the day. But to be appreciative of Tamara and the work that she and Susan have done, she was all summer long better in the water than I anticipated she would be, and better on the bike than I anticipated she would be, and as spectacular on the run as I knew she would be. So I think the big surprise for outsiders who haven't followed her for 12, 14 months, they thought she was a runner who got through the swim and bike and waited to the run. But it's clear that she's, trying to be the complete package, and the swim and bike are very good. Room for improvement, but very good. And the run is as good as, anybody. I said, when I was watching her in the race, it reminded me of Carol Montgomery, who Tamara's going to have to look up. But Carol Montgomery went to the Olympic Games in two sports at the same Olympics. So she went in the triathlon and the 10,000, ran 32:11 on the track, went to Commonwealth Games and so forth for 10,000 meters. So that's the kind of running that I remember from 20 plus years ago. And it was, reminiscent watching her at the Lululemon race a couple of weeks ago.
It certainly was exciting to watch, and dare I say, as one of the individuals sitting on the outside fences, cheering her on and letting her know people from Uxbridge were cheering her on as well. I was listening to all kinds of people pick all these other names, and I just looked around with my son and said, just wait, because there's a train coming. And sure enough, there she was. Tamara, most viewers may know that you've had a running background, and certainly from the PTO race, if they watch that and are going to watch in the next little while. Can you give us a little bit of a short summary? How did sports start for you? How did you get involved in running and in track, cross country track, coming out of Toronto High School, and what got you started?
So my school had a house system, sort of like Hogwarts houses, and you got points for participating in things, and you got nice pins if you got lots of house points. And so I really wanted to collect those, and joining track and field was a way to collect house points. So I joined in grade 6, and to my great surprise, turned out to be good at it. And my very enthusiastic physics teacher coach in grade 6 recommended U of T's sort of high school junior development track program. And I started running with them when I was about 14, and then stayed with them, and then through their university varsity program for quite a long time.
Fantastic. You had a very distinguished career throughout your undergrad years, and as you mentioned to me through some of our pre-discussions on email, that you actually finished your fifth year of U Sports in law school during graduate studies through law school. Can you describe your interest going from national caliber and even international caliber junior cross country Canadian team that went to Worlds for junior cross country. Can you describe a little bit of your interest going from running into triathlons, both going into the standard distance and the long distance?
Yeah. So my running career had really sort of big ups and downs, and um, I ran really well in 2008, 2009 as a junior, and then had a lot of injury problems. Had another sort of glimmer of getting back towards more of an international level in 2011, 2012, and then ran into a whole bunch more injury setbacks. So it felt uh, at some points like sort of 10 years of constant, very confusing for us, repetitive strain injuries. There have been a lot of layers of the onion of different things to fix to get to the bottom of that. So I loved it, but I also got quite frustrated, and I started to inch closer towards triathlon as a result. As I remember, particularly, I honestly forget which year it was, but there was one year where I was pool running mostly alone for almost an entire year, with sort of like the odd other person on the track team who would have much shorter term injuries coming to join me for a bit and then getting back on track. And that went on for so long that I felt like I had to change something because I couldn't keep doing it, but I didn't want to stop. So I started swimming a bit with U of T's triathlon club, just as a cross training for running that was more social. And it was kind of fun to me that it was actually working on something that's its own sport as opposed to just sort of bobbing around pool running. Um, so I did that a little bit on and off. Whenever I was able to get back onto the track, I would focus on that and not do any of the cross training. And then in summer of 2016, I guess, developed a tear in my plantar fascia that was really quite bad and ended up taking 18 months to heal, during which it wasn't clear like whether I would be able to get back to running, how I would get back to running. And that's when I ended up teaming up with Suzanne, and she gave me sort of a summer program of swimming and cycling to sort of stay focused and stay sane. And I did some like aqua bike races. And then we kind of developed a plan to try triathlon the next year, mostly as a way to make sure that I wasn't coming back into running too quickly and to keep more of that, what I still saw as sort of cross training in my program. So I did an age group season in 2008, and I just found it a lot of fun. It was really refreshing for me to have a different focus from this sort of what had become a frustrating cycle. I was caught up with running, and I really loved the atmosphere around the events I was at. I loved learning things in other sports and feeling like there was a lot of room to develop with the swim and the bike because it was so new. And just the competitions in triathlon are actually really fun. I love running and I love track, but I think I overall enjoy each race in triathlon more and love the community. So ended up sticking with it and not going back to track and trying a pro season in 2019.
Great. Can you describe some of the strategies that Suzanne Zalazo is your coach? And I have to just share with you, I was petrified emailing back and forth between Barrie, yourself, and Suzanne when I found out she has a PhD in the literary arts and the author of two books. I thought, oh my God, if she looks at my grammar, she's going to think I'm some unintelligent boob here. So I was quite paranoid about doing that. But I hope she excuses my grammar on some of those messages. But Suzanne is your coach, Suzanne Zalazo, one of the coaches at Atomica. Can you describe what her coaching strategies, how they've evolved from 2017 and mitigating the risk of injury into 2018, where you started to get traction in some of your pro racing, and now trying awkwardly to be, let's say, a little bit more progressive and dedicated and interested this year, albeit a COVID year. Can you tell us how she approaches things with you?
Um, to think of how it's changed. We've the plan. She has always had a plan of developing my swim and bike a lot, and I guess it's been initially everything was hyper focused on not getting injured, and so we've become a bit more aggressive with some of our progressions now, but it's still kind of all part of the same plan, and just incrementally building on it. And she knows me a lot better now, so I think we work together quite well. But her overall approach is very creative and flexible and sort of rigorously positive. Um, and she came in with my whole injury history. She came in as someone who hadn't been part of that whole story, and that was very helpful at the start, that there wasn't a lot of emotion caught up in it for her, and it was a fresh set of eyes on what was happening with my athletics. But I think she is very collaborative, treats everything that's going on as some kind of learning opportunity, which I think is very much a part of Suzanne, but also part of I find the multi-sport approach to athletics, which is that there are a lot of different things you need to learn, and so she'll just highlight learning opportunities in things. So with this pro championship, very bike cornering is not something I've ever worked on a lot, and not my forte, or not something that's been a big part of my life for a long time or has come naturally to me. And so it was a big focus on, like, you know what, if this goes well on the day, great. If it doesn't, but look how much extra cornering work we're doing. This is great. And yeah, I really enjoy that sort of flexible learning, rigorously positive approach, flexible and creative.
And it sounds like she takes an approach in which she makes you a part of the shared planning as an athlete. I don't want to say that coaches are all autocratic or anything like that, but certainly it sounds like you're obviously a mature athlete. You're not a 17, 18, 19-year-old junior that maybe needs more guidance. You've been in high performance sport, and she looks to you to provide a lot of feedback throughout that.
Yeah, and I think just trying to compare it to my track experience, the coaches at U of T are also very collaborative, but they're running a program that's designed for like multiple varsity runners, and within that, they do give people individual attention, but they're sort of like a broad, overarching program. And with Suzanne, it's almost more like she's a coaching consultant, and we work together on my program because she's coming at it with a huge amount of experience. I have sort of quite a few years now of experience as an athlete. And it always feels like we're working together on my program. And then Ethan Davenport, who I ran with at U of T, and he does some coaching in their high school program, collaborates with us on the run program. So Suzanne does a lot of the swim and bike, and then she'll put in sections where she wants a run focus or where run workouts will fit in the week. And Ethan's the one who fills in the details of what those running workouts will be. But we all talk about it together as we figure it out.
That's fantastic. Just very quickly, I'm going to let our viewers know that they can certainly go to the chat on the side of their YouTube feed and send us questions, and we'll do our best to filter through those questions. And sorry, I'm getting some technical advice. What's that?
30 minutes till 9 o'clock.
Okay, we're at 30 minutes till 9 o'clock. We want to make sure that all the viewers get to watch that PTO race and see you in action. But they can certainly send their questions in. Barrie, one thing that just popped up through this conversation recently was describing the Osprey TPC course, which was the mainstay of two of the three disciplines, being both the bike and the run. Can you describe to us what you meant by the cornering and what that means? And then we'll get Tamara to describe that in her words when she got a chance to experience it, first time, second time, and ultimately on race day, 37 times. So Give us an idea of how that, of what that means in that course.
Well, for those who aren't familiar, we had two venues. So the reason we're able to execute so, let's say, efficiently, we have our own quarry, which we were able to do all of our own training all summer, set it up for whatever distances we wanted. So the James Dick Quarry on Highway 10 in North Caledon allowed us to completely control the swimming environment. So that was the first part of the day. And then we had to travel 7 or 8 kilometers to this beautiful little sub town of Caledon called Alton. And within that town was this little subdivision that has all of the streets already laid out. It is an absolutely ideal cycling mecca. And when I first started going there about a year and a half ago, I would see kids on skateboards and kids on mountain bikes and, just enjoying. If you're a kid and you find perfect pavement without a car nearby, it's the absolute perfect situation. So we were lucky enough through some negotiations with the owners of the subdivision to be able to secure it for the summertime, to put the insurance on it, to take care of it, to get all the gravel off the corners, and they kept the grass cut, etc. So we had different courses we used throughout the summer, but for the technical course that Tamara raced on and the other 19 pros is essentially was 4 left-hand turns, 1.25 kilometers around. So think of almost a big square, but it had some sizable climbing in it for both the bike and the run. So it wasn't just your kind of perfect downtown Toronto square. This had a good kind of 45, 50 meter vertical climb that you had to do every single time. And the elite athletes were carrying 35 to 50 kilometers an hour around those corners. Like this wasn't just kind of lollygagging. And you could see the people who could ride the corners the best certainly, were able to maintain their speed higher and just get more efficiency out of every one of those corners. So one of the beauties of it was that we had it laid out for the last 6 weeks. So athletes had the chance. I know Tamara went there, and Jackson and Cody and Taylor and the bunch. The guys who were disadvantaged were, poor Brent McMahon and Rach McBride and Emily, who were all getting into town, the day or two before. But Kira and Tristan probably rode on that course, 75 times over the summer. So they knew those corners really well. Where do I aim for? Where's the apex? Where do I come out at? Where do I keep my speed going? And so forth. So literally the last 7 weeks, we've had bike criterium races there every Thursday night. And I'm talking world-class, some of the top 15, criterium bike racers in Canada out riding on that course. And they love it because there's not a dog, there's not a car, no basketballs flying out of a driveway coming at you as you're going down. It's perfectly clear without any houses or trees. You can see around every corner you're coming around. So we had the absolutely perfect, you could not ask for a better situation. We could set the course up and leave it for the last 2 months of the summer. So every athlete in my group probably rode it, 3 times a week times, 10 weeks. So they would have had somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 35 to 40 hours of learning how to corner on it. And I could see my 70-year-olds like Bob Nucky and my 18-year-olds like Kira Gupta Baltazar all improving significantly, because most of the time we get out on a road and we ride behind another person and we go 13 kilometers down and turn on a corner and go another 20K down to the next town, and that kind of thing. You might have 5 corners you do on a 50K ride. Here, Tamara had 120 some corners that she had to do in just 1 hour of biking. So you're going to become a better bike rider, or you're going to visit a bale of hay, one of the two. And so it really was a perfect opportunity. I mean, the best technical rider out there probably was either Taylor Reed or Brent McMahon, who, bike race. They've been in those kinds of races before. And you could see the difference. Whereas, Cody Beals, by his own acknowledgement, hadn't done much riding on that, was a bit nervous.
Well,
Tamara
and Liam Donnelly almost bit the big one on the very first lap. I was getting a little nervous so when he was scrubbing his derailleur on the curb. And how about for you, Tamara, as Barrie has mentioned, how did you feel going into this particular race that the viewers are going to see in 25 minutes? You had a chance to ride the course previously, experience it, but you had to go 37 times around under race conditions with a little bit more competitive spirit, knowing that you're trying to do not only your best, but race against some of the best female athletes in Canada and in the world.
Yeah, well, I was having nightmares about the course like right up to the morning of the race. Um, but I think the competitive spirit helped me on the day. It's yeah, the corners are sort of nice 90-degree turns. They don't look too scary, but two of them you're kind of coming down a hill, and the hardest one you sort of come down a big hill and you're at a high speed as you're trying to do it. And um, I have, but cycling is the newest sport to me in triathlon, and it's I haven't had a lot of opportunities or made a lot of opportunities for myself to practice um, cornering. So I was out on the course, I think about 3 or 4 times before the race, and one of them was just me and my partner Chris, who does a lot of mountain biking and is much better technically on a bike than I am. And he just like did laps with me for an hour, no specific workout, just do loops of this to try to get through the corners better. And for the first 45 minutes of that, he really doesn't hold back in his criticism or lack of enthusiasm about how I'm doing. And I was scared to go through the corners at like 30 kilometers an hour. Then by the last 15 minutes, it started to get better and better. And finally, I was able to go through them faster. And I did a bit of just following him through the corners to get a better sense of the line, and that helped a lot. There's still a lot that I need to improve, and I could even feel it on the course while I was racing. I would make ground on people coming up some of the hills, and then it would be hard as I was finding strategic spots to pass them without drafting. We'd come down the hills and they would corner better and they would pick up speed, and I'd have to try to make it up on the uphill again. So I was really pleased with how my bike went compared to how I looked on that course a week before the race. It was a huge improvement, but there's still a lot of work for me to do, and I could during the race I felt really happy with how my bike was going, but I could also feel where other athletes were getting ahead by taking those corners better than I was.
That's great. Well, again, we certainly know what the outcome of the race was, and again, people are going to see it soon. Um, Can you give us an idea of whether or not you and Suzanne, your coach, have felt that, given your lead up races that you took advantage of through C3 and then this PTO Lululemon race, did you get the measuring sticks that you wanted? And have you assessed your racing to date, demonstrating progression that you wanted? Can you give us an idea of what your self evaluation is so far?
Um, yeah, I think this was surprisingly, it turned out to be a very satisfying sort of mini summer season. And I really thank the many people, including Barrie and C3, who made that happen. It's amazing what the triathlon community in Ontario was able to accomplish, and then support from athletes in other provinces for that championship as well. I was really pleased to see time progress on my swim and the bike. It was satisfying to be able to show that to people in the swim, because I did a lot of work on that over the winter, and then when pools closed for a while in March, I thought that was it, and I knew that I thought my swim was improving, but no one else was ever going to see it. So that was really satisfying. Having high caliber Canadian competition also really made the summer. Having such strong other competition made it so much more exciting and meaningful. And you can't have really good sport with like just like one athlete. It was amazing the caliber of fields that we were able to put together, just drawing on Ontario athletes and Canadian athletes, and that was really exciting, and made it a lot more fun.
Well, we certainly, the one thing that a lot of people are going to see is different on this race is that obviously the swim took place under socially distanced conditions, 30 seconds apart. Then there's an extended period of time with no transition zone, so to speak, an extended rest and preparation, move completely courses 14 kilometers away, reset an hour and a half later, and then the quote unquote bike run takes place. But within that, under very close to standard Olympic distance for the bike and the run being 40K and then 10K run, it was not a draft legal race, and we had a mixture of aero position athletes, road bike position athletes because they may have been in on the Olympic stream pathway or something like that. So we certainly know overall that these results, we have to take them with a degree of a grain of salt. However, the quality of those athletes, as you mentioned, Tamara, was outstanding. There were Olympians, men and women, in this race, and recent ones on the women's side. Very strong, very powerful cyclists in the women's field as well. And you came out and won this. I'm just wondering if it became a measuring stick where you've not only realized your progression on the swim and the bike, but you've recognized or realized the progression of putting more of them together into one sport, the triathlon. Are you starting to see that and feel that and recognize that?
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the focus of what Suzanne and I are doing. So my swim doesn't hold up well as just a swim. It has to be part of a triathlon, and I think something that's important to us has been developing my run, but recognizing that it's not enough to just always be a strong runner. Like I really do want to be a triathlete, and so putting all of those pieces together has always been the goal, and is always what we have been focused on. I think everyone who was competing this summer had to adapt to sort of different race formats, and that was interesting for all of the athletes and a bit of a learning curve for all of us. So the competition, especially with the way that the pro champs, the way that that was set up, it's, you know, we're all triathletes, but this was sort of like a separate type of triathlon event that isn't ITU and isn't long course and isn't mishmash. And so it's, who knows how everyone would do if we were each doing our sort of normal sport or normal distance. But I think this was fun to take as something that is triathlon, but a little bit different and had elements that were new to all of the athletes there in different ways. It was an interesting different thing to focus on,
And still a great test for everyone.
John,
So
just a comment. Tamara's, always humble, but the half Ironman that we did last weekend was a really, really spectacular assessment. Kristen Marchand, who is a very high quality athlete and a phenomenal biker, said to me after that race, Tamara went by her at about 65 or 70K of the 90K ride. So this is against a bona fide, woman who comes third, fourth off the bike in many, many big events. So, her bike has come to a whole new level. And then what blew the minds of everyone who watched the 20-kilometer run, 70 minutes for 20 kilometers on what was not an easy course because you had to go up and over this bridge 8 times. So there was an elevation climb on every one of the laps twice. And I measured 17:35 per 5K. And anybody who runs just, a sub 25K goes, wow, I did pretty well. Get down under 18 for lots of young development women, that's a big accomplishment. But to run 17:35 4 times in a row after 90K of biking, and it wasn't an easy bike course. Like I've said this for a while, but Tamara right now is kind of zoned in on going to be one of the half dozen best women in the world, in my estimation, at that half Ironman distance. And, if she wants to go up one day or come down, those are distances that, she'll just have to work a different set of skills. But right now, I feel extremely motivated to see what's possible over the next couple of years because it's the package is there. More improvement in the swim still required, but not far off. Obviously, she's never going to be Lucy Charles, but that's okay. Lucy Charles, may never run as fast as Tamara can run, but all the races I saw this summer were impressive. The win at the Lululemon event, impressive, but most impressive race of the whole summer for me was the half Ironman last weekend because that's really what she's kind of been training for. I can see that, the endurance didn't die. Like, if it was 2 laps of 17:30 and then a 22-minute run, you go, okay, maybe this woman can't run for 20K off the bike, but she ran as faster in the 4th lap than she ran in the 2nd lap of a 20K run. So that's an indication, that her program is in a good place. And my only disappointment is that this isn't a normal year where she could be racing worlds in another 6 weeks from now, because I think she would have surprised a lot of people even this year, but we may have to wait another year to see that.
Well, I think not. There are a lot of fans, Tamara, that would agree with Barrie, and you are extremely humble. And I already made a promise to you that I won't ask a few questions that you and I had gone back and forth with. So I will avoid those. But I certainly hope that you and Barrie will stay on the line with me afterwards, just to share a few things with you off the line. So we'll do that. There's one little surprise here, Tamara, that we're going to go through, because I think people, and by the way, it was Jackson Landry who said, "Watch out, you are going to be a household name," just so you know. So it was Jackson Landry that said that. I've got a little surprise here. So this is just going to be a little lightning round, okay? I know you don't want to do anything to jeopardize your wonderful established reputation as a lawyer. So I won't do that. But a few lightning round questions so people get a little bit of more of a semblance of who you are. Okay? Are you ready for these? Okay.
I hope so.
If there was a piece of clothing that could come back into fashion that's vintage, what would you like to see come back?
Oh my goodness. Fashion questions are not good questions for me. What would I like to see back? I always think that it's a shame that men don't wear like the great boots from like the 1700s that you see on the Three Musketeers. I think that would be great.
Oh, cool. I love that answer. That's awesome. Uh, I think this next question's a no-brainer, but maybe not. Your favorite school subject when you were in school?
Um, Probably history. I loved most school subjects, but I'd say history. I've had some really good history teachers and really enjoyed it.
All right, my next question's a music one. I had one, and it was geared for some younger interviewees that I did, but I'll modify it a little bit. Your favorite pump-up music before a race?
Um, Usually, my partner Chris makes playlists for me, and in my mind, they all kind of become love songs to Chris. But they do a lot of like One Republic and stuff like that. This summer, though, was a little different. This summer, I watched Hamilton on Disney Plus, and every single race was just the Hamilton soundtrack.
Okay. Um, Favorite fast food chain? Do you have one?
I don't know if I can remember the last time that I was at a fast food
Fair
chain.
enough.
When I was younger, I liked Harvey's, but it's been a long time.
Okay. Make a choice. Here we go. Vacuum the house, mow the lawn, clean the bathroom, or wash dishes. Which would you pick?
Definitely wash dishes.
Okay. Favorite sports hero?
Uh, Favorite sports hero. That's a really hard one. I
That's
think
okay.
I've
We'll move on to,
okay.
and this might be a no-brainer too, but if not triathlon, what sport would you do?
If not triathlon, I would probably still be trying to reboot my running
Running
career.
career. Okay.
And the good thing about triathlon is that I get a lot of running that I get to do other stuff too.
Favorite food the night before competition?
This summer, every night before every single competition, we got takeout from Urban Pantry in Uxbridge, and I had a veggie burger every single time. So,
Know the place well. We've been there ourselves as well. Um, your favorite place to compete so far?
uh,
Your whole career. You've been
my
South
whole
America
career.
several times. You ran all over the place. Favorite place to compete?
I think I really loved the 70.3 in Buenos Aires. I'd never been to South America, and I don't know fully now what I expected Argentina to be like, but Buenos Aires was a really interesting city, and it was fun to
Yeah.
It's
explore.
going to become New Zealand. Your new favorite place is going to become New Zealand. Trust me.
I think I feel sad every time I hear about New Zealand right now.
You will race in New Zealand. It'll become your second favorite place other than Canada. Trust me.
You got to make a choice again, Tamara. Chocolate, chocolate or ice cream?
Chocolate. I don't think I even need to hear the rest of the question.
Okay.
Definitely going to be the answer.
Bike, mechanical or Di2?
Di2.
Oh, okay. Now, again, thinking previously, some of our younger athletes, this seems to be something that the young female athletes are always chatting about. Your favorite brand of swimsuit?
Favorite brand of swimsuit is I'm blanking on like what the name of the swimsuit that everyone wears with like the ties at the back.
Jolyn, don't tell me
Jolyn, yeah. So one
Oh
of
my
my
God.
friends got me one, and they just last really well.
Yeah, I know my daughter too. Everyone wants the Jolyn.
Suzanne gave me one though that looks like a mermaid suit, and the label's all worn out, so I have no idea what brand it is. But I wish I did, because it's probably my favorite one right now. But I have no idea how to get another one.
Okay. Well, we're getting closer to end of our time, and we do have a question. So I'm just going to turn here and get hear a little voice here. It's young Master Lucas, our budding triathlete. Lucas, what's our question?
Okay, here it is. Tamara, you had a super impressive year of swim improvement. Can you tell us an insight into what your swim program looked like in terms of volume, frequency, and intensity? Do you swim with a group?
Did you hear that from Lucas?
Okay. Yeah. So the volume and intensity changes based on time of year. Typically, I'm getting in at least 3 swims that are 3 to 4K each week. But over this past winter, we had some periods where I was doing up to 7K in workouts, not for long periods of time, but we kind of did a build to that over the winter. And then at training camp, I was in the pool every day. A lot of variety in those workouts. Well, there was more pool access. One of them each week was sort of a shorter a shorter like 2K speed workout of like not very many intervals, a lot of rest. And I was doing that for a while with Kelly Fitzsimmons, who's a modern pentathlete. But unfortunately, COVID interrupted that pretty quickly after we got it going well. I usually swim with the masters group at U of T, and that's actually been one of the harder parts of the pandemic for me. That group was just really starting to gel into a good community, and we're all pretty scattered right now, and it's just people that I really enjoyed spending time with in the pool. It's hard to see them outside of that context. So a lot on my own, sort of mix of volume, not often a huge amount of volume, but parts of the year where it builds to that, parts of my swimming with groups. All summer, it's been more open water than I've ever done in my life. And I think I would do more of that now. I think it's worked out really well. And I can see myself in future summers mixing in more open water again than I've been used to before that.
That's great. Well, as I mentioned, guys, we are at about 8:53, and there will be not only yourselves probably want to catch what kind of footage has been edited and put together on the PTO race. So we are going to wrap up. I can't thank both of you enough, and you as well, Tamara, for the budding superstar that everybody keeps saying you're going to be and already are. In fact, in my mind, I really hope that you'll consider the opportunity to do another interview with us in the future, because there's so many more questions that I'd love to ask, and I'm sure viewers would like to hear about them. Barrie, thank you so much for not only being here, but being the leader of a year in Ontario when the sport wasn't moving. And I can say that as a parent of a young budding triathlete who wanted to do stuff, and as a dumb swim coach who finally got kids in the water for the last 3 weeks up in Uxbridge. Tamara, you'll be happy that our swim program is back up and running, and excited to be going. So thank you both. Really appreciate it. Please stay on for just a couple more minutes to wrap up offline. But thanks again, and thank you to all the viewers for tuning in to Fit Live TV. Stay tuned for the PTO race. It's on a different link. Barrie, Shepley, and C3 has provided the link. Our channel has supplied a link to the show as well. We hope you all watch it and watch Tamara Jewett in action winning that race. Thank you, everyone, and stay on the line, guys, and all the best from Fit Live TV.